this is him questioning me, right? So he said, process orientation, incredible and rich range of orientation and perspective. He said, people who pick up and drop skills when they don't need them, and he's not looking for a skill set that he believes that we have too many. So he had a different perspective and a thought to that question, which I really appreciate that. So please help me welcome to the stage Dr. Robert Chandler, visiting professor of communication from Lisbon, speaking on the topic of crisis management and innovation approach for anti-crisis innovation leadership.
Welcome, survivors! Yeah, you have made it to the end. You haven't been voted off the island yet. You notice how many chairs are now empty? They have been banished from the island, and you are a winner. So I'm thrilled with that. Thank you. I'm always humbled to come here. I don't know why the only here at Old University professor talk about the latest research trends, but I do it anyway, because to me it's what I'm all about. So it's kind of fun. I do want to just sort of provoke you. My wife says I'm very good at that. I want to provoke you to think about some things. I can't in 52 minutes or whatever I've got on the clock necessarily cover everything as intensively as we do in the graduate course, although we welcome to come and study with us, and we can talk about that if you're interested, because I am going to approach this a little bit from a graduate seminar approach. So I want to challenge some paradigms. I want to get us to think about a new way of looking and interacting together. There's an entire library of approaches to crisis management. There are different models. There are different themes. There are different tricks. There are, you can buy a lot of books out there. You can buy one of mine, I don't know, but you can certainly go out there and find different models. There's also a push right now to sort of bringing everything together as a unitary approach. There are vendors that will sell you decision support software and crisis management tools that guide your decisions as if somehow that was going to make things go better. And we look at that. I'm not sure that there is one approach. I don't even think my insights for an innovation approach are the only exclusive approach. That's not my claim. I wish I could say I have something that's exclusive. I do think, though, it has a lot to do with causing us to rethink a very critical function. And so that's really what I mean by innovation crisis management. It is sort of stepping back. Now, you will rightly say there will be bits and pieces of this. I did that long ago, and that's fair enough. This once again doesn't claim to be new, but I do want to pull it together and organize it in a way that causes us to see the challenges differently. Framing it. I use my eyeglasses as an example. You guys just changed. I don't know if you realize that. You went from being pretty much defined to being a little bit more impressionistic from my perspective, and all I did was remove my glasses. Oh, you're back. It's how we look at things, right? It's perspective. It doesn't mean the reality has changed all that much, but what I see is very different when I frame it one way or not frame it in another way. This word innovation, that's a buzzword. We go through periods. Any of you remember synergy? Yeah, okay, well, you can probably come up with some more of them. There's always something, and in the last couple of years, innovation's been a key word. I have a couple of colleagues that have written a few books on innovation. And creativity, and it's a very hot topic. It certainly is true in this area. I like it because it gets to some of the things I've been preaching for a long time about crisis management. I think innovation fits as a good term. But I'm not sure we have universal agreement on what it means. Some people feel it means invention, some people feel it's creativity, and so we'll talk about that a bit more as we go through it. If you tried to define it, you'd come up with it. I did this with my students. I said, define innovation for me. And so they came up with certain words, generally creativity, new, adaptable, flexible, change are words that get in there. Or I said, how would you describe it as a characteristic? They said, it means being clever. It means figuring out something nobody else can figure out. I like those kinds of things. Generally speaking, what we're looking at is letting go of a conventional one-size-fits-all one way of doing it and finding creative pathways to solving things. Innovation is the idea. Remember the old, if you're older, remember the old training exercise where they gave you these dots on a paper and you had to connect them all? And of course, the secret to connecting them all was you had to extend the line outside the box, which is where the phrase thinking outside the box came from, that you have to see the page differently. Well, that's, in a sense, innovation. You didn't stay within the predictable confines of what was happening, and I think that's where I'm going with it. So innovation is connected to creativity and broad perspective, seeing things more complexly, seeing things in ways that other people don't typically see them. It is both a mindset and it's more tactical, more technique, process. And so there's always two dimensions of innovation that I'm very interested in. I think it's also the idea that innovation is coming at situations and understanding them with a completely new vision. I was going to put a bunch of my slides in here about the rabbit or the duck, and if you look at it different ways, you see different things depending on what you perceive, or if you've seen the old lady and the young girl drawing. And I think part of innovation is being able to switch back and forth and suddenly see something that was not there before and have a vision for it. I didn't. I decided to go with the artistic light bulb to illustrate my point. I hope it does. But to find the creativity within a traditional spot, to see things that are there that are inherent within it. I think, and to reiterate this point, innovation is both an orientation, it's a mindset, it's a brain thing, and it's also a technique. It is a process. It is a series of applications. It is always both of those. My approach to rethinking crisis management is both mindset and technique, approaches, innovative approaches, and how we work it together. I think that if we look for it, and my students in the master's program always want a definition. They say, Professor, we need a definition, and so I came up with a definition. But my point is not to have you memorize a definition, but to begin to think about it. Let's see what happens if we integrate creativity, adaptability, flux, responsiveness, and we begin to swirl them together to think about what does it mean to be a crisis manager? It means to go bowling where perhaps no one's gone before. And it's a different mindset than saying follow the plan. Follow the plan. Just do the checklist. Stick with the plan. Right? Knows everything. Right? He's thought of it all. Which it hasn't. But you'll say that. In terms of doing it, innovation is the idea of pulling things together. It is the opposite of exnovation, and that's a word that only us professors use. I get that. I know, Google it. Exnovation is the opposite of innovation. Exnovation basically is the idea of refusing to change. There are people in this audience right now going, no, I don't need this. No. This is all I got to think about. I know everything there is to know. And if you think I'm making up that there's not somebody sitting here thinking it right now, then you've not been teaching in the classroom for 38 years. Okay, because I know better. Exnovation is the idea that I got it covered. You really, I don't need to rethink this. I don't want to, you know what? We had a meeting about this 29 years ago, got all this worked out. We really don't need to revisit it. We took care of it all. We decided. Exnovation is, I'm happy, I'm content, please don't rock my boat. Right? Exnovation are the most dominant creature on this planet, the king of the species. It is the dinosaurs exactly 20 minutes before the asteroid hits. Things can't get any better. We're top of the heap. Those little mammals scurrying about, we step on them. I'm not worried. Any of you old enough to remember Alfred E. Newman? What? Me worried? Sorry, young people, my apologies. My daughters tell me I'm woefully out of date, so never mind. I'll come back and explain that later out before you. Exnovation is the enemy for innovation crisis management. Being content, complacent. I don't need to adapt. I've got a system, Bob. I have a response that I use for every possible event. That's a warning sign, dinosaur friend. I can handle it. I would never be overwhelmed by situations. Exnovation is the failure to innovate. Yes, exnovation means your species disappears. I mean, it's just your job, your career, your company, your business. But the basic point I want to embed in your mind, I will try to use every tool I have, is basically you become extinct. Right? You become gasoline in somebody's SUV a couple of million years old. That's your ultimate destiny. So at least you serve a purpose. Right? Exnovation. I am suggesting an approach that abandons exnovation approaches and moves towards innovation approaches, adaptability, and things. Let me give you a tale real quickly of two companies. All right? Oh, you spoiled my whole talking point. Look, so you have two companies. You have one of them that starts out with VHS tapes and brick and mortar stores. People go and rent them, and they're very profitable. In fact, they're very successful. They later switch to DVDs. success. They don't need to change. Everything's hunky-dory. They are the dinosaurs. They're on top of the heap. You have another company that comes just a few years later that also rents DVDs, although their innovation is that they do it through the mail. You go online, you order it, 3 to 5 days after you want to see Rocky 7, it arrives and the DVD, you don't know what I'm talking about? You do know about it. See, you fill in the names. I don't have to do it. I can trouble enough with all the vendors out there, let alone the companies like this here. Now, of those 2 companies, both of them had a model at the peak of sending DVDs to customers. The technology changed, and that's part of the equation, but it's not the whole story. Both of them faced a dinosaur launch. Yet, one of them is right now an incredibly profitable major player in media content, streaming, downloading. My guess is most of you in this room have an account with them. If not, you have one that your children are using right now while you sit here. Excavation, innovation. Can I illustrate it any better for you? And it's not just people say, oh, yes, the technology changed. I get the role of technology, and there is a piece of that, but that has more to do with the asteroid, not the adaptability. If you get my metaphor. Because I think the technology is part of it, and I think as you think about technology, you can't really, any of you go to the old Walt Disney World Carousel of Progress, if you're old enough to remember that, I can almost sing the song, I think. These are the times, these are the best times of our life. Things can't get any better. We've got the latest, greatest, it'll never be better technology than we have now. And of course you go through every decade in the Carousel of Progress, and each time they think they've kind of done it all. There's a myth, I think, that technology and technological innovation is what drives this. But I am suggesting to you, the whole point of my talk, it has more to do with a mindset for innovation and adapting to change and the procedures and tactics to do it. What does that do with crisis management? We're trying to rethink the entire ground floor of what we're trying to do when we manage crisis. That's all this old professor is trying to get you to think about. Right? And so we look at these kind of case studies, and we look at it, and so yeah, we watch this progression that happens. The late 1800s were a period of tremendous boom, technologically speaking. All sorts of new devices. They invented the computing scale. They invented the employee time machine. I mean, the time card machine, I know some of you have to punch in, punch out. I hate that. That was invented in the late 1800s. They invented a tabulating machine, a calculator, first calculating device. These are wonderful inventions. In fact, right after the turn of the century, a fellow by the name of Charles Flint pulled them all together and created the computing, tabulating, recording company. Now, if this was just about technology, let me tell you, none of those technologies that were founded in 1911 are in use today. And if they are, you're even more ancient than I am in terms of tech. You're still using some of those 1800 devices. By the way, that company would have to be gone, right? Are our previous speakers still in the room? I'm about to give you a shout out. Yeah, if you didn't know it, they're not gone, they're still here. They just spoke before me representing a company that was founded on technology grounded in the late 1800s. And I'm not suggesting that it's technology. I'm giving them a shout out that they're still around and in business because they innovated. Not all businesses founded that year are still here. The ones I mentioned a minute ago, some were founded much later, aren't here. Excavation is the static mindset. We don't need to change. We're pretty happy. We're content. We're content with the way things are. That's an excavation. An innovation mindset. Now, again, we're going to go back to crisis management. If you think your way of doing it, you're content with it, it's a warning sign. If you're questioning, saying, I'm ready to learn more, I'm ready to explore new things, is a positive sign. I'm ready to be adaptive. I'm ready to innovate and do things differently. Because I don't care what set of tools you have. I remember when I thought laser disc was going to be the future of everything. I really wanted one of those things. I never got around to getting one, but I thought, if I could have that, it would be so cool. I did actually own a quadraphonic stereo at one point in my life. There's a few people in the room who remember those. Most of you don't. My bad. Sorry, but why we needed 4 speakers instead of 2 is beyond me. But here's the thing. I understand the role of changes in technology, but I want to decouple that from it because I think it's a myth. I think it's a myth that innovation is just using the latest and greatest technology. Because whatever tools you have no matter how great they are, no matter what somebody wants to sell you, and again, I'm giving a shout out to my previous speakers, but I get that whatever they've got right now is the latest and greatest. Come back and see me in 10 years. I'm not saying it's bad. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm telling you that's an inexorable march. It will continue to evolve. The question is, will you? When we talk about how to manage crisis, you know, if I don't know how many of you have gone to see a motion picture in a Cinerama theater. I don't know how many of you remember the Cinerama theaters. Yeah, that was the full surround theater. You went in and it was all immersive, and it was a new thing. That's how movies were going to be doing that. The younger people people were really weird when you were young, weren't you? Yes, we were. We were very weird. You know, whatever it might be, technology is ephemeral. So I understand that you see this as a technological progress, but technology is ephemeral. It's not enduring. Innovation is enduring. An innovation mindset. Now we're going to come back to understand. So if you want to manage a crisis, I really think the key is to find innovation. Or you can just go get on your MySpace page and post with all your friends. Again, apologies to the young people. They're going, never mind, okay? I decided to be cool the other day with my students and I mentioned my Instagram. They go, Instagram? Who uses that? I said, okay, never mind. I quit, I tried, I really did try. I tried to keep up, I can't do this in terms of doing it. I think that the way that we do things and our approaches have obviously been adaptive all along, but they need to continue to be. And when I look around us and I see the training, I see speakers at conferences, I see books that are being published, I see software being sold, I'm very concerned that we're stripping away innovation and creativity from crisis management and we're making it too much like self-driving cars or self-flying airplanes. My concern is, here's my concern with self-flying airplanes. I think it's wonderful. Yes, it improves redundancy. It's great. It's safe. Except for the one time the system doesn't work. And the people that are sitting in those seats up there, we suddenly realize they no longer know how to fly the plane. That's kind of my fear. And I'm suggesting we need to go back and teach some real innovation skills for crisis managers. We need to teach fundamentals. We need to not just rely on technology and tools in terms of doing it. I'm suggesting innovation is both a mindset and process. And I won't go through the entire lecture here. I can't. I can lecture. I'm good at it. I know how to give a lecture. I just want to get you to think about it. If you want to talk more about it, I'm always available to talk more. But I think we should start training people in the idea of recognizing problems, generating solutions, selecting solutions, and implementing solutions, and that we see this as an innovation process, which is really different than a checklist. Completely different than a checklist. Completely different than just do your reaction. In fact, I want to know what you're going to do when you run out of pages in the plan. You're flipping through the pages, flipping, and suddenly the crisis is still going, and I've run out of plan. And you can stop like this. I quit. You know, let it burn. I'll be a dinosaur. I'm suggesting that we try to go beyond that. And by the way, this is the idea of I don't have a whiteboard up here. They won't let me use one, so I just pretend I have a whiteboard and I'm enjoying. So if you see doing new things and how you do it and what you're doing it in innovative ways, we want to move up to the quadrant of changing both what we do and how we do it, and that's innovation. Always looking for some way of doing it. I think that's kind of the approach. One of the case studies in business school, every MBA student in the country right now is required to write a case study paper on Kodak, Lucky Kodak. It's one of the things that happens. And of course, one of the most common titles that graduate students write about Kodak moments and the Kodak moment case study. And so I will mention it because that is sort of the MBA thing right now. You guys are familiar with the Kodak moment, right? Again, that may be a generational thing. Very successful branding. The idea that birthdays and weddings and bar mitzvahs and baptisms, everything, the great moments in life were Kodak moments. Beautiful branding. Gorgeous, wonderful ad. I love that. Just a great marketing effort. And of course, Kodak became a dominant player in emulsive film and photography. And again, my generation, Kodak had cameras, Kodak sold film for those cameras. Brilliant business strategy. The problem is that Kodak has the same issue about innovation versus excavation. My point is, it's not just the change from analog to digital technology, though that plays a backdrop. I get it. But not every company that watches the technology change goes through Kodak moments. It has to do with a mindset and an orientation. So you look at a Kodak moment and you basically see, I'll make this work. The question of an activation extinction. What happens to a company that doesn't have this mindset? How do you manage a crisis such as the world is going digital? By the way, in defense of Kodak, and my students do case studies, the Kodak business case study, they got into digital photography, they just never realigned the whole innovation process. And it really gets down to some of the details. And so when we look at the innovation extinction risk, we look at the idea of how does some company go from being an incredible economic powerhouse to really losing their relevance. By the way, I'm arguing that's a crisis too, but that's a slow-moving crisis. It's not the same as a flood or a tornado. But if you don't have innovation as an approach, by the way, just like everyone else, Kodak decided to reinvent themselves as a technology company, which is what they are today. The residual Kodak is a technology company, which I still am arguing in my business case study briefs is a misanalysis of the problem. Their problem was never tied to technology; it was tied to their mindset of whether they were going to survive or not, and how they were going to adapt to the changes in the marketplace. I'm suggesting the same to everyone here today. Whatever your role is, an innovation mindset is what creates your survival. It has nothing to do with what tool you're using. I don't care what email system you're on or what software you have. I'm talking about up here. Right? That's where the whole point of this is going in terms of working together. They continue to do this. In fact, I still think they've missed the point. I don't think they learned the lesson from it in even the residual company today, but that's so much. So actually in business school and MBA programs, they actually use a Kodak moment as a case study in business class. And again, I think their problem at core was activation, their problem wasn't. I think if we continue to approach extinction challenges, crises, and events using the same old systems that we have, we will never have the new solutions that we need to move forward. And I tried to find some smart people to agree with me, so I got this guy to come over and show him. He's always very impressive to quote him, but I agree with him on this one. I agree with him entirely. So, what am I calling for? What's my point? If I lost you, I'm all wandering around like a professor. My point is we want to begin to cultivate an innovation mindset and innovation processes for changing the way we respond to crises. I can preach a sermon here. I'm going to get very clear what my altar call is. This is where I'm trying to get us to in terms of interacting together. I'm bundling it all under the phrase innovation crisis management, but that's all I'm doing is getting us to rethink it. I am suggesting a paradigm shift. I want us to see the challenge of managing a crisis slightly differently. All right, so I want you to see that. Part of this is by challenging some old crisis managers' tales that persist. Can I start with my number one myth I want to do? Okay, even at this conference, I've sat in a room with speakers telling me that crisis is danger and opportunity, or how to get opportunity out of danger or opportunity out of crisis. Most of the time, and I have heard many speakers, and I have sat quietly and politely in the room, will tell me that the Chinese characters for crisis are a combination of danger and opportunity. Anybody hear this? Has anybody heard this little talk before? Thank you. I tried to track down where this came from. The best I can figure out is President John F. Kennedy once used this in a speech in the around the 1960s presidential election campaign, and it's been re-quoted by more and more people. Now, I like President Kennedy. He seems like a nice guy, but I think it's possible he didn't know what he was talking about. I have heard this over and over again in many different opportunities. And it may be very inspirational. And I know I'm going to blow your minds at this moment. But it's my professorial duty, we say professorial pleasure in the classroom, to explain that may be a very incorrect interpretation, both of the Chinese and the message. I neither speak Chinese nor Klingon. They're not part of my language set. So I turn to some experts. So let me point you to Professor Victor Mayer, who does. I don't know if he speaks Klingon. I should clarify that. He speaks Chinese. Who is a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. By the way, he has made it his mission to challenge that urban legend. He is very adamant, very animated to say that's not what it says, or at the very least, it's inaccurate. It's not a fair translation of it. This idea that crisis is really a combination of danger and opportunity. He does say that the words crisis, danger, and opportunity share certain strokes. And they actually have a piece of them that is shared. That part is true. And by the way, if I'm doing this right now, some of you went out after drinks last night, and you got your Chinese characters tattooed on crisis and danger and opportunity. My apologies for being the last speaker and not getting to you before you went to the tattoo party last night. I really want profound apologies in terms of doing it. There is the part that the word share that the good professor tells us about, and those are best translated as quick-witted and adaptable. Which is something I'm interested in. We can keep those. By the way, Professor Mayer actually is even more antagonistic than I am about it. In fact, I have this quote from a video he did on YouTube, which says, if any crisis management guru tells you to look for opportunity in a crisis, you should really leave the room immediately. He gets very agitated with that, and he sees it as a form of opportunism that he does not like. Look, I'm realistic. There's no way a bunch of nerdy university professors are going to stop people from using magazines. It's going to be used. My apologies. Yes. For both the tattoos and for coughing. Yes, I apologize for both. One of the things that I think we have to do, though, is see if we can find some benefit for this type of approach. So what I want to suggest is this. The next time a speaker stands up and says, the Chinese characters for crisis are danger and opportunity, and you should find opportunity in crisis, what I want you to do is be polite. Don't interrupt them. But here's what I want you to think about at that moment. Those Chinese characters suggest that the best way to respond to a crisis, to danger, and opportunity is to be quick-witted and adaptable. The best response to a crisis and danger and opportunity is to be quick-witted and adaptable. And that goes back to my innovation crisis management approach. That's at its heart. Quick-witted. Paradigm shift. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, shifting paradigms here. Going from a checklist mentality, going from a process mentality of following the procedures to one that's quick-witted and adaptable. Let me give you another one. Okay, so excavation through some of you. It's like, I don't use that word every day. Let me do another one. Another word that's a perfectly good word that we rarely use is anticrisis. Anticrisis is anything that's done in an effort to prevent, counter a crisis. Survival skills are an anticrisis skill, you know. If you're trying to avoid a car accident, anti-crisis skills. You avoid anything that is a crisis, or you prevent it or mitigate it. And I want to suggest that part of innovation crisis management has to do with not only a mindset of innovation, but a mindset of anti-crisis. Right? I will explain more what anti-crisis is. So you're a zebra minding your business out on the savannah. The apex predator, the lion, who is stronger, faster, very hungry, looks at you and thinks, lunch. So the lion begins to pounce on our zebra. Now, our zebra can say, I don't have teeth, I don't have jaws, I don't have claws. I guess I'll be lunch. Or the zebra can decide to use whatever means available and figure out a way to not be the lion's lunch. So what does a zebra can do? Well, the zebra's got a few tricks up his sleeve. He's got a pretty good back kick. Could really make the lion think twice. Might make the lion think I'm going to Chick-fil-A. Not doing this. Anti-crisis is an orientation of doing what you need to do to manage it. You manage the next step. You do the next thing. You survive long enough to get a little distance between you and the danger, the threat, and then you keep moving forward. Anti-crisis is coming up with creative solutions even if the odds are stacked against you. And in a lot of crisis situations, the odds will be stacked against you. You will not always be the dominant dinosaur. And even when you are the dominant dinosaur, it may be the end. Even when you think you've got all the odds in your favor, you may not be there. When the great white shark decides to eat you, sometimes you've got to turn the tables on it. That's an anti-crisis response. Maybe that's the one thing the shark wasn't expecting. You turn those tables around. The other alternative is extinction. It's exnovation. You either innovate or die. That's a business process. It's whether you're swimming off the coast and the great white shark decides you look like a seal. One of my best films for my students is we've watched this film over and over again, and we analyze it for innovation crisis management. And if you've not watched this film recently, let me encourage you to go watch it again. I think it is a case study. I know it's fictional, but it is a case study in innovation crisis management. Right? This is my favorite Martian. It's a double, never mind. Only a few of you got it, but I'm proud of the few of you who get my jokes. My daughter would be like, I couldn't believe anybody gets my jokes. Work the problem, innovation, this idea of being, you take yourself in the most precarious situation, if there's no solution, there's no plan. Can you come up with a way to solve it, to manage it, to survive it, to thrive it? Can you do that? That's crisis, that's innovative crisis management, preparing yourself for doing it. Work the problem, work the first problem, work the second problem, or as they say in The Martian, do the math. Think of the solution. Yes, the solution may be unpleasant. The solution is not what we thought the solution was going to be. You know, you may be removing the metal from your own tummy. You may be growing potatoes in something. You may end up doing things that are very highly unusual, but if they're what you need to have the anti-crisis mindset, survive. It's the difference in being lunch of the lion or not. Or as that film, I think, my students love it because we keep coming up with case study vignettes. It's the choice is extinction or figuring it out. And I'm going to choose to figure it out. That is an innovation mindset. That is how we innovate. Innovation mindset is the antithesis of a static, one-size-fits-all procedural approach. And when you run out of procedures or steps into procedures, you give up. Sorry, we've exhausted it. Anti-crisis mindset is improvise, adapt, and overcome. Some of you know that phrase. You figure it out. You work the problem. You work on the next step. I think that is a better fundamental core approach than saying, well, we've got software wrong, and it really doesn't. It doesn't do that. That's what the rest of the guys on decision. The best story I read my students that they love is a story of a group of law enforcement officers and city engineers when they had a truck that went through too low of an underpass. And you may have read this case study as well. The truck was going at a high rate of speed and managed to completely wedge itself in a low-level overpass, and the truck was stopped. And they brought in the incident commander, who brought in city officials, who brought in transportation officials, who brought in an engineering team, and they were going to take a series of decoupling of the overhead roadway, and they were going to bring hydraulic jacks in, and they were going to try and raise that so the truck was blocking traffic. It was in the middle of about the 10th hour of trying to work this problem and bringing this heavy-duty equipment in to raise this bridge, to clear the roadway, that a boy, 14-year-old boy, came by on a bike, looked at the situation, thought for a minute. The incident commander's there, and they listened to him going, we can't get this truck stuck. We're going to have to raise the whole bridge. The boy said, why don't you just let the air out of the tires and drive it out? Oh! Innovation crisis management is looking at it differently. You've got all your process. We've got to figure out how to raise this bridge. We've got to get the bridge raised. That's the procedures say raise the bridge by 11 centimeters. Just let the air out of the tires. Quick, done. That's innovation. Crisis management. That's solving a problem through a creative way. That's moving it ahead. It's the classic example. You know, if I gave a maze to a group of my MBA students and they're doing it and they're trying to figure out all the angles and stuff, and I give it to a 6-year-old, I know who's going to do it quicker. Right? Like my students are trying to say, I'll do it. I'm not literally thinking outside the box. crisis management is to come up with solutions that may be outside the normal boundaries. And again, my apologies for the young people in the room, but we've called it nicknamed the MacGyver model. Yeah, don't look on like MTV or BTV or old-time television, you know. But the old MacGyver model is that you have a resourceful person who was smart, who kept his composure no matter what. You couldn't battle him. He had a wide range of skills, whatever you needed. It wasn't, by the way, I'm opposed to narrow silos. I think we should begin training people very broadly. That's not always popular. No, but we need specialists. No, we don't. We need generalists with range. That's a whole other presentation I can do at some point. I need someone who's adaptable and apply them. I need them to have technical knowledge, but they need people skills. I need them with great situational awareness. I need them to be able to step back and see things in perspective. Find out where the real dangers are. Adaptability, creativity, well prepared, problem solving skills. I want to marry this guy. I mean, I want a leader who can help me manage crises and handle that, right? I'm trying to be funny because I find that my points sometimes stick better when I do the dry lectures. I'll let you remember things. As we go through and do it, some of you know that you say, well, Bob, those are all things. You're talking about Martian movie, you're talking about a fictional TV character. I do a lot of work with cockpit resource management teams. I work with some of the airlines, I work with FAA. We're trying to figure out how to make them work. So just quickly, 2 case studies from cockpit resources. United Flight 232. Summer of 1989, I believe. Flight from Stapleton Airport to Chicago O'Hare Airport. It's a DC-10 aircraft. That's a tri-engine, wide-body, heavy aircraft. Very routine flight. Typical running the mail bags back between Denver and Chicago. Particularly for United, 2 hubs connected. I'm not a pilot. I do enough in my CRA work to talk to pilots, work with pilots, and I understand that you fly an airplane basically by moving ailerons, flaps, vertical stabilizer, horizontal stabilizer, and rudder. Pitch, yaw. You turn the plane, you steer the plane. It flies because you have these control devices. Without the control devices, an aircraft becomes a large rock hurtling in the sky, which gravity says will. I don't know if you remember this, but about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, United 232 at about 37,000 feet up in the air, had one of the engine number 3 that's located in the rear of the plane, the main aluminum disc inside of it completely shattered. It exploded. It was micro cracks, a whole other presentation about a disaster. And one of the things that it did was it cut through all of the rear part of the plane. Because the hydraulic system on an aircraft is so critical, it's actually built with 3 redundant systems. There are 3 independent systems that supply hydraulic fluid to all of those flight mechanisms and control mechanisms in the plane. The logic being that if you lose one hydraulic system, you got 2 more. The odds of losing one are microscopic. Odds of losing 2 are beyond estimating, and the odds of losing all 3 redundant hydraulic control systems are not even worthy of mentioning because they're impossible. You could not lose all of them. With one unanticipated exception. There's a junction point in the tail of the DC-10 where 3 independent hydraulic lines all come together and run across the top of the rear engine and move back down the road. Not separate tubes, but they're all linked. When the fan disintegrated, it cut all 3 hydraulic control lines, which meant as the plane blade to death, no flight control surfaces could work anymore. The National Transportation Safety Board deems that a non-survivable event. The plane cannot be flown in that state. You have nearly 300 people on board. You now have basically a fatal accident that's happened. It's just a question now who they fall on top of. One of the things about this is that the emergency manual book in the cockpit of that flight that day doesn't have a chapter in it about what to do if you lose 3 hydraulic systems. And the reason there is no chapter for it is because it was regarded as an impossible to occur event. Those of you who trust your plans, who don't want to talk about innovative crisis management, there are impossible to occur events you're going to have to manage at some point. The other thing about United Flight 232 Heavy is that there was a deadhead pilot on board, Denny Finch. And by the way, Denny Finch's story is remarkable. I don't know, you may know this story. If not, I'd love to give a shout out to people because they're my case studies when I do CRM research. Finch was riding in the aircraft and he heard the explosion. He went up, knocked on the cockpit door and said, "I'm identifying myself as Finch." And he said, "Can I be of help?" Now, Captain Al Haynes, who was in command of the flight, could have said, "No, we got it under control. We don't need help." He didn't, by the way. He says, "Yes, please, come in. We need every brain we can get on this thing." By the way, the 4 officers in the cockpit of that aircraft at that point had 103 years of flying experience between them. And so they began to work the problem. How do you suddenly fly a plane that's unflyable? Everything you've been trained to do to fly a plane is now irrelevant. Every bit of your training, every bit of your preparation. Innovative crisis management, this is what I'm talking about. This is an illustration of it. As you go through these particular things, and I'm not going to read all of this. I will say this: it's a remarkable coincidence that Denny Finch was there. Denny Finch was a flight certifying training pilot. He had extensive experience. He also had a weird fascination with a JLO crash that happened a few years earlier. 747 that lost control of its hydraulic system because of a blown bulkhead in the rear of the plane. You remember that one? And he had become fascinated with it for some reason. He had wondered, is there any way to fly a plane without hydraulics? He had actually gone and built time on a flight simulator and tried to operate other ways of flying a plane without hydraulics, even though told, no, this is impossible to happen. It can't happen. Isn't it weird? He was sitting on the anyway. I mean, there's a lot of weird things that happened with him. He went up there. Al Hayes welcomed him into the cockpit. I mean, there's so many parts of the story that are very good. He actually sat on the floor of that cockpit, and actually, since they had no controls, they couldn't make the plane go up, they couldn't make it go down, they couldn't make it go left, they couldn't make it go right. He actually experimented by doing power differentials on the remaining 2 good engines, and was able to, in that kind of jerky motion, keep the plane airborne. Innovative crisis management. He came up with a solution that there was no plan for, there was no training for, there was no procedures for. They began to work the various parts of the problem. My point is this: as you think about these people, they were really involved in an innovation crisis management situation. They were trying to manage a crisis of which none of them should have been part of. And keeping their composure in the middle of it. I put some of the CVR recordings up here. My point is this: I want you to know that they could have done the zero and the seal thing and said, "All right, we're lunch." I think I would have cleaned up the puddle underneath me. If I was there, I'm glad it wasn't me there, because I don't know what you do. Your whole life training is, we're going to die. This is an unsurvivable event that just happened. We just happen to not have thought about that just yet. We're still coasting along here. But they began to work the problem. And if you look at it, they're really pretty remarkable. And they're a great case study when I do CRM case studies. This is the final 60 seconds of the CVR recording before that. One of the things that happens with innovation crisis management is that you take an unwinnable situation and you figure out how to maximize what it is. It doesn't mean it's always going to turn out perfect, but you take a situation where the odds are against you, where the circumstances are. You're the zebra, you're the seal, you're the dinosaur, you're whoever it is, and you figure out a way to make this happen, and you interact together. By the way, this unsurvivable event ended up with 185 people on board who survived their lives to innovative crisis management on United Flight 232. You say, but Bob, people died. Yes, they did, and that's tragic. But I want you to see this in a scale of what was regarded by every rational measurement should have been a complete loss of life. Should have been a much more horrific story in terms of doing it. Captain Hayes later said, "Weren't you guys too scared to think or decide?" And he said, "No, we were just too busy to be scared." Innovative crisis management is you're too busy to be freaked out, you're too busy to go sulk, you're too busy to get overwhelmed, you need to get back to solving the problem. You're like my Martian. Solve the next problem. Don't sit down and be overwhelmed. It's insurmountable, I'm going to begin. Right? That's the first thing that you learn. CRM, this is a long, wordy thing. I will point out to you that I do think part of this is innovative crisis management really relates to my work in cockpit research management. I think you have to listen, I think you have to work as a team, but I'll let it go with that. My slides are available, you can look at it. Denny Finch passed away. I really love honoring people that have shown this and saved other lives and done great passed away with some health issues and stuff later on. And just as I was putting these slides together to come here, Captain Al Hayes passed away at the end of August. Again, I say that only to honor them, that these were people who used innovative. They were off the edge of the playbook, you understand? They were managing a situation. The same would be true on the Miracle of the Hudson flight. You've all probably seen the movie now, Sully. And you understand, when we look at cockpit research, it's a great example of what innovative crisis management is. You lost both engines? No, you mean just one. You can't lose both engines. Yeah, actually we did. No. That doesn't happen. Yeah, and so you have the story of the Miracle of the Hudson Sully. By the way, turning on the auxiliary power unit to keep power when the engines were gone, that's not in the manual. That's not in the procedures. It's not what the software says do next on the checklist. He decided to do that based upon his innovation. Right? I'm holding these people up as heroes. And again, this was not in the plan because it was considered a remarkably unlikely event. And today it's regarded as one of the most, in fact, the National Transportation Safety Board calls it the most successful ditching in aviation history. But Bob, they landed the plane in the river. Yes, they did. Most successful ditching in aviation. People say, what do you mean by innovation crisis management? I'm talking about changing our mindset and the way we solve problems. That's all. I think we can train them. I think we can do a shift in paradigms and think differently about it. And much like I honor the other pilots, I'll honor these. They're both still faithfully with us. Available for hire if you need speakers. That's a remarkable one call about how much they charge to come speak. But good for them. I should get those same rates. And in terms of doing that. So, back to my favorite Martian. Considering the anti-crisis innovation mindset is all we want to do. I want to put us in a place where we look at innovation. I think it's a survival orientation. One of my students brought a book into class the other day. I thought it was perfect. All right, so I'm stealing this from my student. But the book was called 7 Keys to Wilderness Survival. And they said, Professor, this is what we've been talking about in class. This is precisely innovation crisis mindset. You know what the 7 keys were in the book? Number 1, master your emotions. You see a theme? Right? Don't freak out. Work the problem. Work the next problem. Keep working the problems till you manage the crisis. Number 2, be situationally aware. As the old joke says, you don't have to run faster than the bear. You just have to run faster than the slowest person in your group. So if you're out doing wildlife photography, you might pay attention when the hungry bear keeps getting bigger than you find him. Pay attention. That's 7 key to wilderness survival. The third one is basically inventory the resources you have available. One of the big differences we find in our research with cockpit research management and everything else on innovation, people focus on what we don't have. I don't have this. It's not available. Oh, I need this. So innovative crisis management is focus on what tools you do have. What can you use? What can you use to solve it? Inventory those tools. Put them to use in creative and innovative ways. Make a plan. I'm not opposed to plans. People sometimes hear me speak on this topic and say, well, you tell us no longer to plan. That's not true. I say don't become completely, totally dependent on your plan and unable to function without it. Have a plan. In fact, you might need to revise your plan pretty quickly. Every case study I've looked at, they needed to revise their plan and come up with something innovative and creative. Nobody's able to just put it into place. They had to look at it differently. But once you have a plan, act. Don't sit around on your hands. Innovative crisis management is a doing orientation. It is an action orientation. It is a movement orientation. Number next, I lost track where I was on the list, but number next is improvise. Yes, creativity. We're back to innovation again. One of the things that you might have to do is use some things in ways they were never intended to use. Find some creative applications for them. Adapt and overcome. I think the other thing that we learned from innovative crisis management case studies is you need perseverance. As the Galaxy Quest crew said, never give up, never surrender. Sorry, I got 4 people left of those. Determination, motivation, they're essential to surviving. You really like to go to this in church. That's almost wrong, but I don't say that. No, have persistence. Stick with it. Stick with what you're doing. I love the book by Sean Hunter. Have you ever read the Sean Hunter book? I encourage it. It's basically encouraging creativity and innovation. I found it very, very powerful as I think about innovative crisis management. My former colleague, Tim Sanders, wrote forward to it, and so it's It's a book. But really, the idea of creativity is part of this. So where do we go from here? All right, let me pull this towards a close. I am suggesting that we commit ourselves to shifting paradigms away from a procedural approach, a checklist approach, to what I'm calling innovative crisis management, which is both a mindset and a technique. We should commit ourselves to training and preparing the next generation of crisis managers more along these lines as a fundamental baseline of how we want to prepare them. I believe that innovative crisis management is both a mindset and a process. And I believe it's how you overcome whatever the challenges are that you're facing. I believe that we have to displace an ex-novation approach with an innovation approach. I don't want to hear why it can't be done or why I'm not interested in changing or I'm really happy the way things are. I think that's the warning sign. I am suggesting we can do better. We can improve an already good system and make it a superior system. We can improve our ability, our resiliency, our resourcefulness, our capabilities. I really think that's very important. And I said I was going to find, I got Einstein, I've got Stephen Hawking now on here, I've got Charles Darwin, I've got Mr. Survivor there. I got everybody here helping me try to make a point home. I do think we need to have an anti-crisis orientation. You learned some new words today. You learned about exnovation, you learned about anti-crisis, and I broke your myth about Chinese characters. But one of the things I hope is a takeaway is that we have to have an anti-crisis orientation. You've got to keep in control of your wits and figure out what you can do. You don't know how much you can. I don't care if you're the zebra or the seal or you're an astronaut traveling on an alien planet all by yourself. Doesn't matter. I want to know what's the next step. Give it to me, and I'm accepting that from you as a resource. Survival skills, anti-crisis mindset, situational awareness, inventory of resources, plan, act, creative problem solving, and perseverance. We get that, more of that from how to survive in the wilderness world. We can no longer depend on any one static approach, nor do I think you can depend upon any magic solution or software package or something else. I need you to rely upon yourself, your own resources, your own creativity, and your own innovation. We need to better prepare crisis management and crisis leaders along these principles. Now, that's my sermon. I'm not going to pass the hat. I should pass the collection plate. But I do think that my goal here is to share with you is I think we can build it bigger, better, and faster. There's a Steve Austin quote in there somewhere about $6 million man. We can do this. We can rebuild people and make them more. Innovation crisis management requires leaders with range. Yeah, skills are important, but I don't need specialists managing crisis. I need generalists. I need adaptable, flexible people who can step back, see things, see big pictures, come up with creative and innovative solutions. That's who I want at the key of managing the crisis. Oh, we need that specialization skills. Then put a team together. You get those skills there, but I want my leadership. I want crisis management leadership to be wide-ranging with broad capabilities. So, if you want to illustrate this, on your way home from this conference, I want you to stop into Blockbuster and I want you to go online to Netflix and order now. Go to streaming Netflix and watch The Martian again. And when you watch The Martian again, I want you to think about innovation crisis management, lessons that we can learn about rethinking and rebuilding. Otherwise, old approaches to new problems are not going to be solutions. I don't care that it always used to work for you. And when you say, I don't need to change, this has worked for me for 30 years. Okay, that's just great. I'm suggesting an innovation crisis management approach that changes the way we think, changes the way we act, changes the way we do. And that's really the kind of simple part of it. So, let's see if there's any quick questions. I know I've only got 4 minutes left here, but we get started. What can I tell you? I got one hand up and one. Yes? Yes, you. I'm sorry. I got light right in my eye.
How do you balance that in a litigious society where shielding your organization's reputation is connected to some adherence to an industry standard?
Okay, so the question is about regulatory compliance and I think legal compliance as well. Obviously, if you've got legal compliance concerns, you need to be compliant compliant with. Nothing that I say would say skip legal compliance. I think, however, and depending on what the regulations are, the notions of due diligence obligation to act in the best interest of those people involved remains a paramount concern. So too Good Samaritan law, so do indemnity for different actions. But obviously, if you're dealing with a highly regulated environment, you've got to get up that attorney, I know how much you love that. You've got to get them involved, you've got to get your compliance officer involved. All I'm suggesting is that you should be as creative as you can, which produces better solutions, as opposed to saying, well, you know, we really... a classic example, we were working with the flight attendant training with one of the airlines that I consult with. Their union regulations say that they can only help passengers get to the door of the aircraft. They're not allowed to assist them beyond it. And it changed some of the issues about exiting an aircraft for emergency evacuation. So we went back to the requirements from the FAA, and they're actually reworking the regulations because of it. So, I mean, part of it is, yes, you need to comply with it. You should also feel free to sit down with regulators. And yet, if you don't trust them, if you're cynical, maybe not. But I think that's a conversation that you have to have when you have. By the way, we find that conflict quite a bit in terms of interacting together. Other questions? I don't know if we got any online ones. Nope. Oh, no. Nobody's on. Wow, I put all of you to sleep. I can't believe I did that. I know. Yes, I was a hand in the back. I apologize. The light is right in my eye. It's hard to see though right there. Oh, tell my wife and kids. Well, no, I don't know if you heard the comment was that innovation is in BCP, not necessarily crisis management, and it may be a terminology difference. My research usually gets framed in crisis management, so those are the language that comes to me, and I'm not necessarily a technology orientation. I will say this, though. The principles that I'm finding in my research projects probably are very widely applicable to lots of categories and sectors and things. And so for me, crisis management works the same whether I'm working with SWAT teams, military response units, DOD, the airlines, when I work with cockpit resource management, when I work with the financial industry. Right now, I just finished a project looking at healthcare teams, trying to manage crisis in healthcare context. The principles I'm finding are fairly widely applicable, though in fact there might be tweaks in terms of how that goes. I certainly, one of the things professors would never say is absolutely always, it's the opposite of what we say. Should be, usually, often, is our kind of phraseology. But no, I think that's a very good point. My hope is that whatever your particular application, and I know in a room this large we've got some real different applications, that there's something here that you can take back and say, I can change how I'm doing it. Yes. Well, there is a question. It's not on my board. It's up here. Sorry. Maybe it is. Okay. The research indicates that routine leadership and management skills are not correlated with non-routine leadership and management skills. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means, first of all, just because you're a routine leader, you may or may not be a good crisis leader. It also means if you're a great crisis leader, crisis manager, you may or may not be a good routine leader. Now, you could be both. It's certainly possible. Fantastic on a routine basis, fantastic in a tight spot. It's possible you're crappy in both circumstances. You're a crappy routine leader and you're a really crappy. It's possible you're really great at routine, but you're not the one we need on the spot when the lion is coming. When the great white shark is about to eat us all, and you're not quite the one we need there. It might be the other way. She might be a terrible routine leader, drive us all bananas, but in the middle of a crisis, you've got exceptional ability to do everything I'm talking about. So the answer to the question is, the official academic answer is there is no correlation between routine versus crisis skills, but there's no exclusion. It's not that, now, usually what people will tell me in the hallways when I say something like that is they say, well, at our company, you're sort of stuck with, they just tell the guy that's a title of a store and he's also a crisis what I'm talking about here, I'm just curious, how many of you have ongoing training programs with these kind of innovation and creativity skill sets for people in these critical roles? I'm just curious. I see 0 hands. Can I humbly suggest that it's a place that we might grow as a field? So we need to be training that. You say, well, but I have military background. I did all this. Okay, and that's great. In fact, I'm looking for you when I'm putting myself together that you've had improvise, adapt, overcome, training. Yes, but I also, why not get everybody involved? Why not get it right? There are people out there who will help you develop that. I mean, we can develop these kinds of skills. You can take your team and drop them off on a deserted island and never come back. No. We will let them build some team skills and survival skills, and you can build that. There are people that will charge you a lot of money to take you out and let you climb ropes and do things, but this is what they're trying to sell you. This is where they're going. Thank you. All right, I'm now at 0 hour. I'm now at 0 time. I appreciate your patience with me. I appreciate your putting up with the old university professor. And you are all survivors for lasting and getting to this point. I am proud of every one of you. Thank you very much.
Told you we saved the best for last, right? You good. Another round of applause. So lunch will be served at 11:45. Just wanted to leave you with a couple of thoughts as I thought about all the conversations we've heard from this conference, from innovation to perspective to vulnerability to resilience to crisis management. One thought came to my mind. How many of you have toddlers? Okay. How many of you have grandbabies? Ooh, yeah. Do they talk yet? Yeah. How many of them ask why? Mommy, why? Daddy, why? Because I said so? That's my mom used to say, because I said so. Stop asking me why. Well, I thought about it. Toddlers ask because they're curious. They're curious about what they see. They're curious about what they hear. And they're curious about what they see you do. So, but they also understand that when they ask why, that you actually have to give them a response, and the answer cannot be no. You're going to give them an answer. So sometimes when they keep asking you those questions, and then you answer that question, and they say, well, why is it white? Well, it's white because that's the way it's made. Well, why is it made white? Turn that question back to your toddler and have them think about why they're asking that question. And if you apply that approach to a 2-year-old, we can apply that approach to our leadership teams. Everybody here has talked about the lack of innovation. It's hard to get engagement. It's hard to get people to buy in. Start asking why. Be curious about what you see, what you hear, and what people do. Thank you very much for attending DRJ Fall. Have a wonderful week, and thank you for your time.